Hey listeners, powered up by Mazer Group, this is the Turnin Dirt podcast. I'm your host, John Mazer. Nathan, thanks for coming today. I've seen that you're an avid watcher of or a listener of the podcast, got some likes and some shares, so I really appreciate that. So, but even before I knew that, I knew I wanted to have you on. You were one of the first guys that I met, one of the first customers that I met when I came out here. I think we stopped by the farm with Jim, and yeah, I remember you and I going back and forth. I think it was as a Versatile 450. I was away with the folks in Maui, or of my family. I was visiting that mom and dad over there, and that was the first combine deal I ever got done on a beach.
Right.
So thank you very much for that. Oh, right on. So I overheard you and producer Jay talking before that you didn't grow up on the farm.
No, like my grandpa had been on the farm. And so he was living on the farm. My dad was raised there with his brothers and sisters, and then my grandpa was hardcore. You know, he was. The story goes that he'd promised my dad at one point in time that he'd retire at 60 and that he'd be able to get the farm.
Yeah.
Fast forward. You know, 94 years old, he died in a fire on the farm, and that was about the way it was going to go down. Right?
No way.
One way or the other, that was how it's going down.
Yeah, yeah. You weren't taking him off the farm. It was as simple as that. Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know,
Yeah.
he was never going to leave there.
Yeah.
And, you know, my mom would be she was more happy to be in the city. And
right.
so my dad would commute.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every day.
Okay, so
every day.
I gotcha.
And then maybe during seeding and harvest, we'd stay during the busy seasons in the house, at the farmhouse.
Yep.
And then when my grandfather died, Danica and I decided to make the move out there just because we'd grown the farm to a certain size, and it's just too hard to manage the farm at that point from the city. You know,
remotely, if you will.
Yeah, just timing and just all these small little things, you know, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, they start to add up in the farming world, and timing's everything between being a successful farmer and not really.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you got to be there and, you know, have your finger on the pulse. And no, it can work the other way, but I mean, you had the right idea though that you moved out there. So, can we touch on your grandpa at all? Like,
sure.
And just like, obviously a tragic accident there. Like
it was, you know, it was, you knew he was going to kind of die, maybe working. He was maybe gunning to be the oldest person alive. He was in great health, great mentally, you know, he was all there.
Yeah.
And working, you know, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, even at that age, which is like, I don't know if they breed that type of people anymore.
I don't know if they do either.
Nope.
Yeah. It's not around yet.
Yeah. So essentially what we'd done was we had a creek that running through our yard, and we'd swathed all the reeds in the creek, and he decided to go burn them.
Really?
And when we weren't there, nobody was around. And so
just by himself.
Yeah. So my father and I had gone golfing.
Yeah.
You know, we gone somewhere that day golfing.
Yeah.
And he lit it up. And that was it. Yeah. We found him on the side of the lawn there, and he'd succumbed to a fire, which was like essentially a smoke inhalation. But
oh man,
that was weird, you know.
Yeah, really sorry to hear that. Like, I mean, it's just you mentioned that, and I had no idea that your grandpa passed like that. But but again, like he got his wish. He died on the farm, and you know, he made it a very, very, like, wasn't 60, that's for sure.
No, but like when you're 94, there's some crazy decisions being made at that age, and you know, it was pretty wild that those last a number of years, regardless. But yeah,
so not only did your grandpa hold off 34 years from his promise to your dad, but he punks him on the last day.
Oh yeah.
Just to go, by the way, this is how it's going to go down.
That's how it was done. Like, we were getting him, he'd been dropped off a couple of times by the police from being in car accidents. Like, I remember truckers hit him on the 39 highway out by Rollo, and he thought he killed my grandpa.
Really?
Yeah, he just shook up. My grandpa's getting trucks totaled off for the last few years, and you know, I don't know if they ever even took his wheels at the end. He still had his license. He couldn't turn his neck, but
oh man, the way you want to go though. Like, I mean, talk about a life of a farmer. Good for him. Like, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So he was living on the farm, the grandpa, and you were in the city, and Dad was in the city.
Correct.
Okay, and then so when Grandpa passed away, that's when you chose to move out there.
Yeah, it was actually my wife's idea. She's like, we should move out of the city and try it out at the farm. And so I was like, well, it was weird because it would be a huge downgrade in terms of the house we'd be living in. So, but in turn, we have all this land and everything. It's weird because living in the city had its perks, and I still have an affinity in all my friends and all my ties to the city. But when you live at the farm and you wake up to farming every day, all you do is farm.
That's right. Yeah, that's all there is to do, right?
You're at work and there's no separation, right? So
that's
it's like, holy fuck, man! Like, no wonder the people just work all the time out here.
This is all there is to do out there. Yeah,
exactly. And so we lived in this house for a long time, and we're happy, but we were like a sardine can in there. We're just like swamped. We couldn't have people out because we'd have workers living in the basement, and we'd be on the main floor, and our dogs and our animals just like, whoa, man, this is out of control.
Yeah.
And then things weren't adding up in like the farming world. Just like, oh wow, I'm dropping $600,000, $700,000 on all these pieces of equipment. Some of them I've never even sat in.
Yeah.
I'm living in a shack.
Yeah.
Like,
something's wrong there.
Something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Some of the equipment I spend 200-300 hours a year in, and I'm living like this.
Yeah.
And that's when we decided, like, okay. And the only other thing that allowed us to like decide to build a home at that point was COVID.
Yeah.
Usually we take off, go somewhere.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Be there. But
so you're really stuck there. Like,
we were stuck and then, and idle hands.
Yeah. There was no escaping the house. Like, you had to do something there.
Had to do something. Yeah. So.
Nice. Did you ever expect to hear from your wife that you should try the farm out? Like,
I didn't know. It was a weird time because she was in film, right? And so at that time they had killed the film industry. They just the whole film industry and the tax credit thing was wiped out. And so then she was without her profession that she'd grown to love.
Yeah, loved and adored and was doing it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so at that point she was like, okay. And we were just finished having kids. Yeah. We just had 2 of our own kids together, and it was, well, does it make sense to even be going to search for another job and try to run the farm and raise kids and then it was like, let's just try out the farm thing. And now here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. Yeah. You're doing it. So how long have you been out there?
We've been out there over 10 years, so maybe 12 years now?
Gotcha. Yeah. So it just, you guys got out there, and it just, it was the trying out. Let's try out the farm.
Yeah, we always kept our house in Regina, but turns out, when we're not during our busy seasons and we had our space in the city, my parents were gone too, so their house was open as well.
Oh, perfect.
And so, we had 2 places here in Regina that and it just sat empty. We did some Airbnb and renting.
Sure.
And we had some weird people living in there that we couldn't get out. And
did you have squatters in there?
Yeah, that was crazy. It was wild. We had people selling drugs out of the house, and there was community watch, and we couldn't get them out of the house.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy. And we lived next door to a police, and he knew what was going on.
Oh, sure.
It was all kind of crazy what's going on, and they wouldn't leave. We weren't getting paid, and they wouldn't leave. And Danica was handling this whole thing, and my wife doesn't typically likes to avoid conflict, but at that point it was making her.
She was welcoming it.
She was irate. No, she was irate. And after we got him out, and that was it. She didn't care how much we got for the house.
It was over.
Yeah, sell the thing.
Liquidate. Yeah, fire sale.
So essentially, we ended up selling the house, and we turned it into a grain cart I got from you, and a golf simulator for my basement.
Lazy assets turn into amazing toys.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's unbelievable.
That is totally. Unbelievable. So your grandpa promised your dad by 60 he'd be gone. He passes away. Your dad has already been working with your grandpa on the farm for years. So what kind of promises has your dad made, or where is your dad in this situation currently?
he's a 50-50 partner with me. We're together on that. And, you know, he's there monetarily and he comes
In soul and spirit.
Yeah, no, he's actually good that way. He comes once we've done like a couple thousand acres of seeding, get all the quirks worked out. He'll fly back and jump on an air seeder till we're done. So it's like usually 2 or 3 weeks. He'll sit on an air seeder, and then he'll fly back to the island with my mom. And then same thing in harvest. Like once we've done 2,000 or 3,000 acres, usually our lentils and our barley, get those licked up, everything else tuned in. Then he hops a flight and jumps on a combine for a month or so. And then
He lets you get all the kinks out of the stuff.
oh yeah,
gets
he
it.
wants just to come in for a soft landing on that side of things.
Good man. Yeah.
But you know, it's good to have him out there, and you know, but he's getting old too, 75. So
Yep. So was there any, when you got to the farm, how many acres are you at now, Nathan?
we're just around 12,000, just under. Yeah.
Yep. So was there any additions after you came in, or was that the size of the farm?
No, we ramped up considerably. I went to college out in Olds there for an ag.
Yep.
Yeah, and when we came back, we were growing, and that's that after that, 2008 was when farming kind of turned around a bit there.
Yep.
So we were ramping up, and we weren't in the seed business pretty much anymore. So we dropped the seed business per se. It's still licensed to grow seed. We still grow seed for one commodity, but we ramped up to around that 10,000, 9,000 acres, and then have grown and retracted over the years. It always fluctuates a bit, but
Sure.
ideally we can farm up to 14 without being too much more equipped, but don't really want to be less than where we're at. We're kind of in that spot where we're at.
Yeah. Would you say it's like a perfect spot, or would you grow if you were like, if it allowed?
I'd take another couple thousand acres, but I don't want to be super mega. I want to be able to take off a bit here.
Yes.
And, have a couple good guys.
Yep.
Which I do have.
Then they're full time.
Yeah. I got my main guy, Trevor, and he's a rock star farmer.
Nice.
Yeah. And,
is he off a farm? Like, is he from a farm, or is he?
Yeah, he comes from a cattle mixed farm those guys back in Manitoba.
Who are those guys, eh?
I'm going to talk a little slower for them,
Yeah.
but it's okay.
Right on. So you're 12 years in out at the farm. Looking back just on this year, Nathan, give us a wrap on the year. Good year?
Good year in a lot of respects. We decided to try an ultra early seeding program this year, which worked out really well. We are in early. For us, it's unheard of kind of early. Probably in the top few people that started farming this year.
Yeah.
So we were seeding on the 12th of April.
Wow.
Which isn't, I've been reading it, but the ultra early seeding and getting into the ground when it's about 2-3 degrees temperature.
Just
ready.
Yeah.
And going in with your cereals.
Yep.
Right. And so from the studies, they say there's zero yield penalty, actually a yield boost. So you get your crop in the ground, get it established, get moisture available to it, all the early rains, and then you kind of skip all that heat blasting while it's flowering. The flowers early, you kind of miss that and get all those windows ahead of the game.
Yep.
And typically crops that we'd be harvesting in October, we are harvesting in August.
Late August, yeah.
Yeah, which is phenomenal, which is like our Kamut and Durham and whatnot.
Yeah, So there was an early finish then, which is always nice because you get then. There is, though, a risk to starting early.
There's always inherent risk. You can only go from what's in front of you. You know, if the ground's ready, you're ready, you got some grain treated, and you're out there. I've been burnt before. Seeding and then getting flooded out and then having to reseed, and it's not uncommon, especially in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
But, one thing that we've gotten done in our area is we have a C&D project that's just come through our area.
C&D.
It's a conservation development area, and so it's essentially ditching project that we formed in our area, and we'd got a pretty Cadillac ditching project done in our area. And instead of having all these rain events that'd be coming from the hills and coming our way and flooding us out, it's kind of containing all those and allowing us to do lateral ditches within our own farm, from our farm.
Okay. Yeah.
Into these main stem ditches, which has allowed and alleviates some of those flooding and rain issues that we've had.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
So this is already in place?
It's in place now. It's just
Like
done.
how many seasons? Oh, so you
last
haven't
2 years.
seen, you have, so the last 2 years you've had this
Yeah, the mostly of the main stem has been done for the last 2 years.
and you've noticed a significant difference in flooding damage?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like we'd be losing on average 800 plus acres a year.
Oh,
So
that consistently.
Consistently.
Really?
Yeah, if not more. There's years in there we were losing like 4,000, 5,000 acres.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
Wow.
Those a crazy years during 11 to 16 was like the opposite of
Yeah.
like the Dust Bowl. It was just like the Flood Bowl, or like holy.
And you
fuck,
you
man.
can't yield any crop out of those acres. Like that acre, that's a dead
That's
acre
like a
for
zero,
the season.
and
Yeah.
the zeros average your average down pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
Fucking goose egg,
Oh,
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you haven't had to front any cost or anything or taxation to get this project done. This is
That's a $10 million project, essentially. And, you know, we had a couple of good guys on our board. We formed a district, a C&D district. And one of the guys was an engineer with the government. And so he really knew how to go after some of the funding that was available out there. And there was, long story short, we got $4.5 million from the government.
Wow.
To help fund our project. So,
Wow.
and it took like a number of tries to go after it, because
Sure.
we were eligible, or we met all the criteria for it.
Yeah.
But as a C&D and these ditching projects have never really received any funding previously. So it was kind of precedent setting in that regard.
Yep.
And it costs a lot of money just to apply for it. Every year costs $40,000. So you got to go to your ratepayers every year and say, hey, we're spending this money and we're not going ahead with our project because we're looking at the bigger picture, trying to get this funding for this project. And it was like essentially like the last kick at the can.
Yeah.
You know, like we were at our third year of applying for it. So we've blown through 120 grand of our ratepayers' money.
Yeah.
And what does it look like after?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we've got this mega Cadillac design. What it's going to do is going to be deadly if you can build it. But what does it look like if you don't get the funding? And how do you design and make like a poor man's project, essentially?
To make it work, but not at the
not at the capacity and the design levels that we were originally designed for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as soon as you get that $4.5 million, man, you know,
Yeah.
like those engineering companies and all those other going to smell that money a mile away.
they'll chew it up, man.
Oh, yeah. What do you got over there?
Yeah.
$4.5 million? Oh, we're going to take some of that for sure.
Yeah. It's a percentage. Go for a percentage.
We recommend golden ditches.
Yeah. That's golden ditch.
Yeah, 24 karat ditches.
Oh, yeah.
So was it and like so? Is it actually what the name is? It's like a ditch. It's just ditches in fields.
Yeah, they're ditches. Most of them are along the road allowances.
Yeah.
And some of them were there from PFRA projects, and some were just there built by the farmers. But you know, all these watersheds have been destroyed over the years.
Sure.
From a farmer putting in a ditch and a culvert here without any thought about person downstream and any culvert size or any proper design or engineered structure. So now you get something that's thought about and has capacity, and you design them for 1 in 5, 1 in 10-year rain events, and that's how the design goes, right? And so a 1 in 10 is what we designed for these rain events, but they're big. I didn't even understand them myself. As I was learning about them.
Yeah.
But when they're done, it'll blow your mind. You're like,
Is that right?
These hold in like 1 in 100-year rain events.
Yeah.
They've got capacity.
Yeah.
And they've got flows, big, huge culverts. Every approach that you build, $70 grand.
Really?
Yeah.
Like to get the front to back, get the culvert in, and
culvert, riprap, dirt, and turnkey. So every place you got to go into a field, $70 grand, $70 grand, $70 grand, and all this dirt you're moving. And so you can't move this dirt very far either because it costs money to move dirt. So
yeah,
it's a lot of side casting and dirt placement close. And
yeah,
and it's good.
Yeah, the reason I asked about the ditches is because in Manitoba they did a lot of that weeping tile, like in and it was in I'm gonna say kind of mid 2000s, maybe later than that, maybe early part of the 10s. Regardless, you saw a lot of that going in, and essentially it's just massive. Like you see residential weeping tile or whatever, but it's massive
tile drainage.
Yeah, tile drainage, and that worked out very well. So that's the reason I asked about if it wasn't just a fancy name if actually put ditches in. So
it's interesting because I sit on the provincial board too for these called the SCDA, and we help get lands into compliance and. For different projects all over the province.
Yep.
And right now there's a new policy coming down the pipeline called the Ag Water Management Stewardship Policy. I think that's how it's named.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, anyways, essentially it's like a wetland mitigation policy, and like everyone has one except for Saskatchewan.
Right.
So Alberta's got one, Manitoba has one.
Yeah.
And the government's under pressure to have one as well. So Water Security's been out engaging with everybody, and we've been working with them in helping develop this policy. And so Manitoba, like you say, has extensive ditch work that done there, as does Ontario. Yeah. And so we're just trying to see what the framework looks like for our own province.
Because it will have to come into policy.
It has to be. It's mandatory. Depends on like how you follow it and police 25, 30 million acres.
Sure, yeah. that gets a little tough for points.
Yeah.
Crazy. So, crazy. Well, that's awesome that you're doing that. Well, I mean, it's done on your farm, and then you're overseeing kind of I would say I guess you are kind of in your committee or wherever you're on, like overseeing the rest of the province, I guess getting the policy into place, right?
The policy is just part of we've been engaged to develop and help work on this policy. What we do is get compliance and get different C&Ds into work, develop new C&Ds. And essentially try to fix what's been done in a lot of these different areas, but there's a lot of pushback, and it's hard.
It's change too, right? Like, I mean, it'd be a change, and change can sometimes scare people, and I can't knock them for that either. But I mean, there has to be a lot of explanation in how this, because I mean, ultimately a project like this benefits everybody, right?
And that's the thing is the problem is like when people hear drainage, they don't necessarily get on board with it. Yeah. And so like you can find when you get into certain areas of certain projects, you can have one person single-handedly kill a project if they're within that area and they say, you're not draining water through my land, just because they've got this mentality that it's like a evangelical Christian or something. They're like, I don't believe that, and that's just the way it's going to be. Yeah. Even though you have the greater good and the land base that says, okay, 70 or 80% of these people think this is a good idea.
Yeah, and that it'll work, and it has worked. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And either you're going to work for the greater good, or you just want to be a hard nose and say no.
Yeah, and shut the door on it. Mm-hmm. Going back to where we started and your early, how did you word it again, Nathan? The early, just early spring sow, or what was it?
Yeah, the ultra early seeding.
Ultra early seeding is. Then this was the first year that you did
First year we did it, worked out really well. You know, all our cereals were really strong. You know, like top number of years that we've in terms of yield wise and profitability on the cereal side. And you know, we got up to that May 1st. We'd done like predominantly most of our cereals. Yeah. Got that first rain in May, and then next thing you know, we're the 12th of May before we started up again. So anything that was seeded kind of after that, you saw a yield penalty for sure. Yeah. Our canola was no exception, straw for 60, 70, low 40 yield. So
that's amazing how big of a difference it makes.
Took a licking on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're gonna move forward with that next year again, do you think?
As long as the weather allows, the ground allows for it. There's a lot of moisture out there right now. You never know how that plays out, but we're ready. We have grain treated for the spring, and you got a couple of drills that won't take too much work to get into working order, and so just get out there. Yeah,
essentially you're pointed down the field, ready to rock. You just have to the snow needs to melt.
Yeah, exactly. We try to be as ready as we can be.
Sure,
but
last spring was perfect for this style of seeding, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's going to come times where you just have to be ready when it's ready.
Exactly.
And
You'll
so
see
you just
more
get in
of
as
it. You'll
early
see,
as possible.
You'll see a whole bunch of people changing the direction and the way they seed. I can see that, like, I have a number of friends that are like, yep, I'm in on that. Soon as I can go, I will go. And especially in that lighter land, we're in heavy land, so it's harder for us, but in a lot of the same ways, we have that water retention that other people don't have because we're in the heavy clay. But even that lighter land where they do need to take advantage of that moisture, and you see a drier landscape out there, that ultra early seeding really benefits those guys who need to take advantage of any type of moisture and those early long growing days, right? So when you get into that heat blast and your crop's already starting to fold up, you know, you're taking yield every day. It's above, 27. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you're going through with it next year. Like, I mean, it's exciting to hear. And like, again, variables included, and obviously the main one is if the snow melts, right? And like you said, we got some, I would say this is early snow, like so far anyway, in the last couple of years I've been here anyway, that it's like, I mean, heavy enough that, like, I mean, the last time we saw sleds in the ditch in November was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like a long time ago. Yeah. And you, like, because your farm just south of Rollo, kind of in that area, correct?
I'm just west of Rollo, yeah.
Just west of Rollo.
Mm-hmm.
I find that, like, just, I guess it would be east of Briarcrest and, like, around that Avonlea area, an interesting, like, weather vortex in there. Like,
it's wild. Like, if you go to Hearn, which is, like, this unheard of town.
Hearn.
Yeah, Hearn. It's wild. There's, like, I think 2 people live there, but it's one of the weather things I follow. And so even the disparity between, like, Rollo and Hearn is, like, 7 degrees. You go look it up right now, you'd be like, yeah, 7 degrees difference.
Yeah.
It's this odd little area of heat.
Yeah.
And it's always a little bit hotter right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, I mean, like in the springtime, you'll see, like, the snow line almost, like, whereas we're still having some melting up here going on. Like, I mean, you start hitting that.
That's not just that. There's a huge shift of, it's an ancient glacial lake bed is what we farm in.
Really?
Yeah. And so what you're seeing are when you go 6 miles south of where I'm farming, you'll see the shores come up. And so that ancient glacial lake bed is like we call it the gumbo.
Yeah.
There's Regina heavy clay.
Yeah.
And there's the Rollo flats. And what we farm is heavy gumbo.
Yeah.
So it can't take, lichens and lentils can't live there like they can all the way around it. But
sure,
you can watch the shores come up and the land changes in like 100 feet. Boom. You'll go like from something like this to what you're seeing there. And that's really just the land and the water holding capabilities of the land.
Really?
That you're seeing, really.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And so you're saying, like, your farm's in the lake bed.
Yeah,
and
I farm a lot of that.
we said, like,
King of the Flat.
The lake flats. So when we were talking about gumbo, you're talking about, like, me and a buddy call it loon shit, but I mean,
it's wild. You can, like, make pottery or something.
Yeah, like it's sticky, right? Like if it's wet and you walk through it, like every step you have a layer of mud on your, like it's like nothing I've ever seen before.
If you're a short guy, you can gain a few inches and be happy. Every time you walk, it's wild.
Yeah.
It'll stick to you. We don't, the thing about us, we don't wear things. We don't, wear things down, like the same shovels, same tips on a cultivator or on your drill. We'll run them forever.
Is that right? They just don't wear.
They don't wear down. So we don't wear things out, but we pull things apart.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, is that like less rocky material?
There is
keeps
no
the
rock.
blades.
Yeah.
Zero
blades
rock.
Smooth.
Not in rock.
But to get through clay, you're talking like the motors in the equipment and like all the
everything.
tension.
The stress on the drill is like, whoa, you can pull things.
So your blades are clean, but you got to keep the motors and all the components up because of the clay.
It's just like a stress thing on like steel and everything like that. We're like, oh wow, tractor keep on going, and then you pulled the hitch off or something, or dropped like a wheels or axles will break and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into the next topic here, because I want to talk a little bit about the fleet. And so in the gumbo, you're seeing different conditions than obviously, here anyway, around the greater Regina area.
Yeah, and it's a tough area to farm. I've seen a lot of people come and go from there.
Yeah.
It's just been historically only a few people have stuck around. And
Is that
like,
right?
Wow, I'm the only person that lives down there. I'm like, wow, man, I must be the only moron left down here.
Well, you figured it out though too. Like, I mean, if somebody else came from, like just as, I don't know, calling it standard, but like more dirty material, and they go into that, like, I mean, it is a change in the way you farm.
It is really. And, I didn't know it was any different, right? It was like, I thought this is how farming normally was. But I had a guy come in here, and a neighbor, he's a good guy, and he bought a bunch of land around us. And he was out from like God's country out in like Tabor area.
Okay, yeah.
And I think he sold the land that we farmed as if it was like Regina heavy clay.
Oh yeah.
And like, oh yeah. And but then it kind of forced my hand because I lost a little bit of land in that whole deal. But it forced me to get like, hey, I'm not going to go mine more dirt here. I already farmed enough of this dirt. So I bought some land over in Milestone, and I farmed some in here in Regina, and then some at Capel. Turns out suffering's optional. This is easy farming. You know what I mean? Like, oh, fuck, this is way easier. This is how farming goes? Oh, man. I just thought that was normal. You know what I mean?
This is the way it worked. Yeah.
It was. It was like always tough, fucking, in the trenches all the time. It felt like,
Yeah.
And because typically no one farms a large number of acres down where we do.
Right.
Usually they farm a couple quarters. They farm on the outskirts, and so they go farm their land when it's ready to come down and farm in our area. They come and do their couple quarters and get the fuck out of there.
Sure. Yeah.
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 But when you farm a lot of those acres, you got to seed. You got to start before it's ready.
Yeah.
During while it's ready, and after it's ready.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of different times. Yeah. But I mean, so like with the soil condition that you're in, does that have a bearing on the equipment you use? As far as like, you and I have had the discussion about tracks versus wheels before. Mm-hmm. Wheels on 4-wheel drives, for instance. Like, does one perform better in your stuff than the other?
I went to try those wheels.
Yep.
Because I thought they would be all banging with the big 900 metrics and everything like that.
Yeah. Looks sexy, but I mean,
they're cool in a lot of aspects, but they're limiting in terms of, it's cool because they can only ever be what they're designed to be, and that's to pull a drill. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to go under a grain cart because they're too freaking wide.
Right. Oh, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Right. So you lose that type of aspect, but I like the weight and I like the traction of a track.
Yeah.
I did like this. Now that I don't own that tractor,
I think I saw the video. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, oh yeah, you might have seen it. Yeah, when I was doing the tractor pull on it. Yeah, I put a quad track right up against that thing, and I walked all over it with a quad track. Yeah, and so the wheels just didn't hold up. Maybe the conditions were a little bit off, but in the way it was, they just kind of walked away on it. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a little bit of a fight at the start.
The first was a fight,
Yeah, and then the quad track hooked up and it was over. Like literally dragged it across the field.
Isn't slippage a problem with tracks in your type of soil? Like
once they get loaded up, you're game over, but to a degree, but yeah. You're going to get the same different problem with tires.
What you're saying is when you load them up, like when you put the drill on a track machine, it's like you can't slip them.
Oh no! Once the tracks get loaded up, you can they start slipping.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But should I be out there just doing what I'm doing when I'm doing that? Probably not. I've seeded ground. I've seen a couple 2,000 or 3,000 acres with 2 tractors in front of each other. Seeding away, just for sheer slippage issues. I get stuck a little bit here, just a little bit there, and like, I'm sick of fucking up. I just want to go get done with this.
Do you know who he's talking about, producer Jay? He's got a tractor pulling the tractor with the drill
to prevent the slippage.
That and just like getting stuck. I was like 2 years ago, I got stuck 94 times.
Recounted.
Wheels or tracks?
It was wheels on those wheels, and but it's not like I didn't get stuck with tracks either. It's more being stupid and buying a drill that's too big for my area. Too big 86-foot drill on 10-inch spacing with 1,000 bushel cart on tracks. I'm like,
That's a massive drill.
That's a big drill.
Yeah.
It's a big drill no
massive
matter
drill,
where
yeah.
you like it. But
Yeah.
it's not the hills, but we're, like I say, we're in that big heavy clay, and
Yeah.
it can be position. I knew it would pose a problem.
Yeah.
And eventually it did. And yet I still own it.
Are you still using those ones?
I got 3 drills now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they all the 86 footers?
I got 2 86 and a 76. 76 is the sweet spot, but I got
Yep.
one 84 foot on 12-inch spacing with a 1,300 bushel cart. And it seems to pull quite a bit easier.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of dedicate that thing to canola and pulses.
Gotcha. So you said an 82 with 12-inch spacing?
84, yeah.
Or sorry, 84 with 12-inch spacing. And so like, I mean, maybe a stupid question, but like how many less shanks is that per drill?
It's essentially the equivalent of a 76-foot drill.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
On
it's
10. A 76 on 10.
Yeah, right. 76 10-inch spacing is the equivalent to 84 and 12-inch spacing.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Same ground engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same number of shanks engaging in the ground.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of a weight difference because
Yeah,
it's a little bit narrower, but it's
Yeah.
less tires too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
How it plays out. I do have a tank on tracks. I like the finish of the tracks, but they definitely pull a little heavier too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You don't see many tanks around with tracks on them. I mean, they look great as tracks do, but like
I like the way they finish. You know,
Yeah.
that really narrow footprint.
Yep.
And they leave a cleaner. They don't have. If you're in adverse conditions, you might get your duals loaded up in between with mud, and they'll leave a terrible finish, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, that can definitely happen.
But
Definitely.
these new big 1,300 bushel carts are mega rubber, and that's another thing. If I'm going to go buy next drills, will always be dualed up all the way around.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the tank. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a lot of weight there? Like 1,300 bushels, you know, like
Even if I went to a 950 cart, I'd still get them dualed up.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Think that's specific to your area that you need that?
I think that's just
Yeah.
a good compaction,
Sure.
preventative thing. We're
Yeah.
always trying to fight it. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how that all plays out.
Gotcha. What do you?
Tram lines, baby.
Yeah, tram lines.
Tram line control, man, I'm telling you.
Controlled traffic. Yeah.
That's that's like an American thing, right?
Well, Michael Carter is doing that.
Is he with
yeah,
C2
yeah,
there?
yeah, with C2. Yeah, and that was a few episodes ago. Like that
Oh,
was
yeah,
like
that
that
was-
was March of 2023.
Yeah.
Episode 2, 3, 2.
2.
Yeah, and he was talking about it. And I mean, the logic makes sense, but I mean, like, you got to be on it, you know, like, I mean, and you got to have everything that,
Everything's got to talk to each other.
and it's divisible between each other, right?
Exactly.
You know, like, so, I mean,
So tram lines aren't universal. It's a choice you make to get less compaction.
Oh, 100%,
and
yeah.
ruined.
You'll see
You-
people with planters, right? Like not necessarily on mega scale farming like what Michael's doing. He might find that hard,
yeah,
to manage.
yeah,
And just in terms of a people person thing,
yeah,
you can see it on a lot of smaller farms I see, but he's running a big operation.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of acres to do that.
Yeah.
What
I
do
like
you,
the idea though.
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you spraying with?
Couple Patriots.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ran those your whole life?
No, I have come up through the pecking order there. We got our first high clearance sprayer was an Apache. Oh boy.
Really?
It was a death trap, man. And especially
Live and
when we were
learn.
from- oh boy, man. Like the kingpins would break and the tank would fly through the back window and like we'd be face down in the mud and it was just like we like thought about suing them.
Literally, yeah. The cap's gonna fall off here. Yeah.
And then we ended up getting these rogators that are built like Sherman tanks, but had they're gutless. Is all you could barely go anything. Like our neighbor had bought these things, one of these rogators, and Kramer wouldn't take it back, and he ended up trying to sue them. But it ended up at auction, and so I ended up buying one of these rogators, and then I got it. I said, "What the hell's wrong with this thing?"
Yeah.
And so my neighbor ended up going to court against him, and that was interesting because then I ended up being like a witness, like
Really?
a professional witness at
Yeah.
court. So I went to court for my neighbor. And after I'd owned it, because I was like, oh, there's something wrong with this thing. I can't get a proper pattern out because don't have any power here. And we ended up finally tuning it up and getting it to some type of workable fashion, but it was never really awesome. I ended up going to court. That is a wild thing to do when you are a farmer who is fairly probably wealthy in his own right, but going up against guys with real lots of money, and then they get flying in professionals and
like crazy shark lawyers. Like
they had he had his one high price lawyer, and they had like 10 high price lawyers.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, they had like Agco, Massey, all came in there getting professionals from like the Nebraska freaking corn flats or some shit. I said, oh man.
okay, yeah, maybe a little too
right hand on the Bible bead, and we're gonna make you swear to tell the truth.
Oh well, I'm one of your key witnesses. We're in trouble here.
Yeah, just saying, guys. Just saying. Did you say you went to court too?
I went to court for him.
Oh, for him. Yeah, you weren't.
No, I wasn't part of the lawsuit. But
Okay.
I was part of it in terms of watching it go down. And
Sure. Yeah.
As a professional.
Yeah.
Applicator.
Gotcha.
That's essentially what I went as. Yeah.
And so and it was because they didn't have. When you say couldn't get a pattern in, there wasn't enough power to keep a straight line. Is what you're saying?
You couldn't even get up to 10 mile an hour.
Really?
Yeah, you couldn't get up there, and so the engine would be lugging, and then in terms your RPMs would lug out, and then you'd lose all your spray pattern.
Yeah,
you didn't have anything like aim or anything like that, and it was just it was a terrible.
That's a nightmare right
How
there.
hard did those lawyers go after you on the stand? Like, did anything trigger you into wanting to,
It was weird because I was there and I'd never been on the stand before. And I was watching this all go down, and I said, "Oh, well, how's this going to work?" He said, "Well, you just tell them what the story is. Like, you've ran this piece of equipment, and just tell them the truth because it's a piece of shit."
Yeah. So we all know this. You just have to say it up there. Yeah.
But there's no way that there should be some C7 cat engine in this big honking sprayer that's probably, 10,000 pounds. Heavier than the next competitor, right?
Yeah.
And so they're built remarkably well, but they did not want to admit that because that would have been precedent setting for them.
Sure.
And then they'd have to come back on that.
Yeah.
And so they weren't laying down at all.
No. They've been fighting every angle. So, like, was it one of their first sprayers or something? Like, I mean,
no, they had some really good ones. It was like 1184 is what it was, I think, a Rogator. But they'd made really good sprayers before that. I think they just botched the engine on it.
Really? Yeah.
And it was just an underpowered engine, and it probably really hurt them.
Oh, I bet it did. Yeah.
In terms of just people buying them and not standing behind them,
Yep.
because all my neighbor wanted to do was take it back and get the next step up.
Sure.
The 1300. He's like,
yeah.
And he wouldn't do it,
Like, see, that's a quick fix right there. Like, they're telling they're going to keep the business there. Like, I mean, each to their own, right? But I mean, like,
it was a brand new. He hadn't put 20 hours on it. When
Yeah.
I got it, at 20 hours, and so it was like.
And figure out something to do. Like, I mean, you could find a home for that trade, whether it's like maybe a smaller farm, but you got to make decisions like that sometimes as a dealer, right? Like, what's best for the dealership and the customer, right?
Absolutely. It was just, and
Yep.
the kind of the writing was in the wall for ag at, we don't care about ag.
Yeah.
We run yellow iron the hell out of here. What are you talking about? This is where real money's at.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think Finning came in or something.
Really?
I think they own. Is that who owns them now?
Fitting does now. Yeah.
Finning owns them now. So
Yeah.
it wasn't too long after that.
Gotcha. Yeah, rolled in there and it was over. So what did happen then?
He lost, and then he
yeah.
appealed and lost.
Oh,
and
so
it
it's
was
just
like he spent like $350, like something like quite a bit of money.
no.
Yeah, he spent like quite a bit of money on it, and I felt bad about it, and it was poorly handled.
Sure.
More than anything, it was just it never had to come to this,
Yeah.
and it was bullshit.
Yeah, it just got a little too far down the road and leaves suffering.
But then no, that's how we ended up eventually into
into Patriots. Yeah. So the next step was Patriots. Yeah.
Yeah, just really well balanced.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Have we got you into a front boom at all? That
No,
demo?
I'd try one out though. Yeah, it'd be interesting to try because I
Yeah.
got some neighbors who really like them too.
Yeah. Yeah. So you never tried one?
I haven't.
Or you're gonna this year?
Perfect. Yeah.
Demo's happening.
Sure.
And then are you running combines? We had some yellow ones out there. didn't we?
Yeah, I was running some yellow combines, and I was happy with them. I liked them.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're great. And we ended up selling them, and then My dad's just stuck with red. Just as a mentality thing. He knows how to run them.
Yeah.
But
Because you sold the yellow ones privately, did you not?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
I remember that happened. Yeah.
I took a licking on those. I would have either just had them sitting around for the price I got for them. Like,
yeah,
I was like, they're a good combine.
They are.
And, and they've only gotten better. So
yeah, because they were later model CRs, were they not?
They're like CR 8090s.
Yeah.
Were. And we were like, yeah, these are awesome. Like the value that they had for what they were, like these are good combines. And yeah, we had guys that only wanted to run them. The guys who came back to run them,
were
like, that's my combine. Yeah, people had staked their claim in them, right?
Yeah.
And
so on the topic of combines, I have to ask you this now. Like, I mean, New Holland's been doing the twin rotor thing for almost 50 years now. And all of a sudden, it is because the patent ran out, but both Deere and Case are coming to the table with twin rotors now. If you see the Case side, the AF11 is the only one available at the moment, which is class 11. And then Deere has the X9's 1100 and 1000 series. So, I mean, your thoughts on that? Like, I mean, here we are now. There's two competitors that are selling against twin rotors. And then they bring a twin rotor in the market.
Well, Case and New Holland are one of the same.
They are.
Absolutely.
So
they're looking after looking after the customer base. And, it was interesting to see the twin rotor come out.
Yeah.
And that's that's the one thing I really loved about the New Hollands was just like, essentially, you're all trying to be a New Holland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was clear as day.
Yep.
And it only makes sense. You just have more surface area, thrashing grain.
Yep.
Got
and
more
distributing
it evenly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
I ran that AF11 this year.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a beast.
Yeah. I'll bet 60 foot on the front.
No, but that's what it wants.
Yeah. I think that's what it needs.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we were at 10% spread.
Yeah.
And we were spreading like 49 feet on a 50-foot header.
That is
wow.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of combine, but then you start getting into a $300,000 header, and then you need separate transport for these 60-foot headers. I can see it. I could. Yeah. You go 360 foots is the same as like 445s.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, it's in great point, Nathan. But getting a 60-foot head, if you wanted a chance traveling with it on there through the railroad crossings, like that's a dance. I don't even think it's possible.
It's not possible.
No,
50 foot's like the limit.
Yeah,
and like I run 45s.
Yep,
and it's a tight squeeze. 50 foot, my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
When we're corner to corner farming.
Yeah.
It's different. It's easy to go maneuver around my area, but start going into these different areas over at Capel that we're farming now.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like that too much.
No, because I mean, there's hills that go down, and I mean, there's roads and bridges and stuff like that, so it just doesn't work. It just does not work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, which
it
brings
wants a 60-foot head though.
Needs it.
Yeah, that's a lot of combine.
Yeah, it's like our 10 right now. Like, I mean, prior to this new one coming out here, like our CR10.9.
I don't think we need anything bigger than a 10 out in Saskatchewan. I don't think we grow a crop big enough to handle that type of crop.
You're dead on the money, man. Like, I mean, it's just, like we don't need it. Like, I mean, the 9.9s right now, which is it's a best-selling combine. It's a class 9. I mean, you can run 45-foot heads on it, very easily, very confidently. It's perfect size for the unit, and they're just a perfect size machine. Now the new 10 that's coming out is kind of taking the place from the for the 9.9, but we're not going to do any CR11 business here. Because I mean, out of our 18 locations, and then the 10 right now sold like 3.
I like the idea of the twin rotor, and I'm pissed that Case didn't, because I run Case. Why didn't you come up with a twin 10?
Yeah,
and they didn't do it. And
that's a political thing. Yeah,
and they figure I could have told them this a long time ago, but I was calling for a bigger cleaning area and a longer rotor long time ago. You could have made that decision. You can't, instead of slapping 16-liter engines and everything and just calling it class 9,
or class 10 or 11,
or whatever the hell you call it. Just it doesn't matter if you can't have no capacity.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So finally, someone listened at some level and made whatever they're going to do now. But How are we going to charge that $1 million price tag? How are we
1
gonna
million,
do
like, yeah,
1.2, whatever.
that's
it
it. Yeah,
is.
like, I mean, the 11s, like, I mean, they're north of 1.2, I think. And I mean, that's just like, you're exactly right. Like, how, as a dealership, are we supposed to get a customer to go up to that and pay that much money? But then there is the issue of bringing that unit back and finding another home for it. That's what our business is made of.
These are depreciating assets.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and like, you know, a guy that's right now taking a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old CR 9.9 and, you know, they're whatever around that 700, 750 or whatever it is. But I mean, now like they got to make that jump and all of a sudden the difference price is 400,000 or 500,000. Like, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
And that's where you'll see the used market take over again. You know, it's just that until they get those costs under control and the price, and either we live with an inflated dollar, with an inflated price of grain, and it stays there, and these numbers make sense, or they come back down to earth, and we start getting actual numbers, because nothing cures high prices like high prices, and nothing cures low prices like low prices.
Right.
And so, at some point, it corrects, and you know, farmers know how to get tight. I know that much. I remember my uncle. Yeah. I remember my uncle saying, you know, I don't want people to think I'm cheap.
Yeah.
I want them to know I'm cheap.
Before they even get out of here. Like, I mean,
God. That's amazing.
That's beautiful. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. Good for him too.
Yeah.
So, Bean, how many, this is just a random question, how many kilometers would you put on a combine in a season, one combine?
I don't we work by kilometers,
sorry,
but we work by hours.
Oh, is that's how it's tracked?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're averaging around like 300 to 400, depends on the operator. You know what I mean? Like if someone knows what they're doing and is out there a lot, or is just, you know, dedicated, because sometimes you'll have one combine straggling out of the 4, or one of them are not all working, but
okay.
Yeah.
So
I know
400 hours a season on one combine.
Roughly 300 to 400. Yeah.
And what is, like, you know, 300,000 kilometers on a truck gets sketchy.
Yeah.
What does that look like in hours on a well-made combine?
That's one season. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's different now.
No. I mean, like,
like in
what's
terms
the
of like
lifespan?
lifespan of these combines, like, I don't know, you can speak to it and I can speak to it, but you know, we get scared after 1,000 hours, you know, 1,000 to 1,200 hours.
So 3 seasons.
We're essentially looking to move down the road, but we're limited by markets and money, you know, like, hey, we'll run them an extra year if we have to, especially when you get to start, you know, there's a tipping point saying, oh, well, what's it cost to get into a new one? Or am I going to make the repairs and keep this one going another year, because a new one's 1.2, 1.3, whereas it's going to cost me $30,000-$40,000 to make mine awesome.
That's for the 11 though. That's for the 11. If you want to go to the 11, I have to. Yeah. But I mean,
I got to get what you're saying, but hey, no rhyme or reason. Let's be freaking real here. I went and bought 3 new combines in 21.
brand new?
Brand new.
Yeah.
Fleet price, $5.25. That's what I spent per combine. No rhyme or reason. No change in combine. Combine's identical. No different. 1 year later, same combine, $840,000.
Whoa.
What? What
Whoa.
model? I didn't have to say. I was just going to say, ask what model it was.
John was about to just take you to his
the 50 series.
office
It's the
right
50
here
series.
and make a deal.
Okay. Yeah. Really?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work then? Because it sounds like
Awesome that I bought my combines when I did.
no shit.
But
And you can't even sell them to get that market value because you need combines to run.
I still need combines.
Yes,
But
yep.
like, okay, well, where do we trade in? What price do we? What does it look like to trade my combines in right now?
And you were saying that was 1 year later?
1 year.
That's so messed up. Like, I mean, okay, like you want to talk about price increases, whatever. Like, I mean, give it a 3-4% or whatever, 5%, 10%.
Yeah.
Like,
That's 50%.
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. Those.
Wow.
So what was it? What can I ask? What they said to that? Like, I mean, when you
We're
looked
still
at,
cheaper than the competition.
oh fuck off.
That's what they're not. That's what I was told. I'm like, what are you talking about? This same combine is now 840. I'm like, so okay, my combine is, it was obviously risen and is appreciated.
Yeah.
Which is, weird to watch, you know.
So
and-
that's the mentality they went into you with.
Yeah,
is that
they
it didn't
wanted-
matter what the price was. We're still, if he wants to buy combines, we're going to be the cheapest, even though we're 50% more than last year.
Yeah, there was just
You're putting clients at risk at that point.
Oh, man,
if that's
like-
your
But they-
sales pitch,
that's not there's. It's what are they supposed to say? That's not them making those prices. It's a capitalism at its worst.
yeah,
just
they got to work with you though, because then you're going to go to a different dealership that's going to be willing to work with
There's
you.
just like they're all that price. It's not just them.
Well-
everybody. You are too.
But then how did you get them in the year before though? Then Nathan,
That's what the price was. The price. That's what the price was. They're 5.25 fleet price that year, and oh wow, COVID happened. Now it's 22, and we've seen all these rampant increases and everything, and now they're 840,000. Why? Because they went to Pablo Escobar's School of Business.
Yeah. Okay.
which is supply and demand, right?
It's a supply and demand thing, but everything was tight, machinery's tight,
Yeah.
and you know this is the way it is now. These are the new numbers.
Well, if it matches the car industry-
the million is the new 500,000.
The car industry did all this very similar. Just like cars in COVID were.
Yeah.
They jumped up crazy amounts. So
Yeah, because I mean, because it started with the car thing. Like, do you remember like guys hearing about the chips?
Oh, yeah, the chips.
That couldn't be made in whatever it was.
I'll take one
Asia.
without the chip.
Yeah, don't put the chip in or whatever.
Just,
but I
yo,
mean, you needed it to drive.
I
it though,
don't
right?
need the chip, bro.
Yeah.
Just give me the vehicle with the steering wheel.
I waited for. I bought this truck that I thought was going to get like they said it was going to be 2 weeks,
Yep.
and so I got my truck almost 11 months later. What are you talking about? It said it was on the rail. It was on its way here.
The chips, bro.
And the chips. Yeah.
That's all it was. Yeah, it was parked at the dealership.
It was parked at the.
You think wherever they're getting made, they might want to get resources there to make chips faster.
Well,
what
just that
happened?
you
Like,
think
what
so.
really?
Did. Well, America
what really
started.
happened?
China shut down, and that's where all the chips are coming from.
Yeah.
And so, we're all reliant on these little chips that they're making over in China.
Yeah.
America's like, I don't like that, and so then they decided to start making their own.
Oh, are they now?
They are
Oh, that's how they. Yeah, that's smart of them.
in house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Imagine
but-
that.
That'll be cheap, eh?
Well, they just instead
not
of your
gonna
truck being 90,000, now it's 120,000.
That's
Exactly,
right.
yeah.
Whatever.
It's crazy. It's crazy. One last question for you, Nathan, before we get to some fun stuff. Is there anything in the industry, and you can say, you can go on for many topics as you want here. What in the industry keeps you up at night?
The lack of the control in terms of where the markets go,
Gotcha.
and mostly the wild increases on prices, and then it just. I had this discussion with Jordan one day, and it kind of rang true. He's like, even at the prices of the new equipment, I can kind of, I understand them, but I don't like being $1,000 to death on the parts like that. I go everywhere, and I'm like,
Right.
wow, it's like 1,000. I know what 1,000 times 1,000 is.
Yeah.
And I can do that pretty quick. And but it's not just that. It's like canola bags that are going up. And they're like, oh, they try to give me an MSRP price this morning. I was like, $1,100 a bag of canola. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, don't even say those numbers to people, even if they're charging that. Don't even say that. It just pisses people off.
What were they before? I don't know what.
I don't know. Like at one point in time, I was paying like $450 a bag.
Okay,
Now
yeah.
they're $900 a bag and $800 a bag.
Still the cheapest though.
No, they're not. And then it's just like,
Don't even say that.
and even the cheapest guys, I don't even want to use the cheapest guys because I get burnt on that side too. So it's just like all the way around at all levels. You know, we are the only morons that, buy retail and sell wholesale. That's farming.
That's
Like in
interesting.
everything. Yeah.
Well, I buy retail from everybody and I sell my grain as a wholesaler.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't argue with you, but obviously the numbers make sense because people keep farming.
Yep.
There's a
World's
lot
got-
of
so world's gotta eat.
people are living off a lot of suffering that's gone on before us, and we didn't just get here from being super sly businessmen. We got a lot of suffering that came on before us.
Truth.
There's a lot of people and a lot of generations that went through a lot of shit to get to where we are. So it's not lost on me. You know, I understand everybody can play like they've done it themselves, but that's not the reality of things. You know, a lot of people have done a lot of things to get to where I am. You know, we're a fourth, fifth generation farm happening here, and where I'm at is all because of what came before me.
Right.
And so there's a lot of value that's come up with that too. And the land values come up with that. And, you know, it's like buying the first combine's hard. Buying the second one's not, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like a lot of these things that come along with being an older farm. It's kind of old money.
Right.
And there is money there, but not in cash.
No. It's in dirt.
Yeah. It's in dirt. It's in assets and buildings and houses and all the stuff you have. I'm not crying. I'm not without. Yeah. You know, I'm doing just fine, but
That's interesting you say you buy retail, sell wholesale. I'm trying to wrap my head around like why there's not suppliers that can, you know, they're not necessarily set up to help farmers.
we're working on a world market, and people will work cheap. That's why the farming's become the way it is. The margins were too small. And so we were forced to become the size that we are now. And so it wasn't any other factors between. There's a few factors. The reason is we're big, this big. One's GPS. We don't have to hold on to a steering wheel and white knuckle. The other is being extremely efficient and good at what we do. You can't be a shitty farmer that weeds itself out too fast. You can't make too many mistakes in this game. They're all expensive.
All of them are.
Yeah, they're all really expensive in this game. So you've weeded out a lot of poor farmers and forced us to work on really tight margins. So at this point, if I make, 5 to 10% on my farm, you hope to make more, right? But on average, say I'm making $100 an acre on a 12,000 acre farm. That's $1.2 million. But for the capital, it's like this. I farm $50-60 million worth of land. I have $10 million worth of equipment, and it cost me $5 million to put my crop in. But I don't want to make as much as an Earl's cocktail waitress.
Yeah.
There's too much capital intensity that goes on into farming. And for the amount of money and the kind of risk that we put out there, you should be making a lot more money.
And you don't control, so Earl's, right? They ran on 5% margins too, but they controlled the sale price to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
But
they
you
can pass those costs.
Yeah, like if we pay more for a steak, the price of our steaks are going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
For you, the market dictates, right? You have brokers that sell your grain for a commodity price. And if I'm not speaking right language, please correct me.
No, you get the lingo right. It's the market's the market.
Yeah, like Earl's wouldn't say, "Oh, today our burgers are selling at $18."
No,
right? They're
There's
like
value built into that.
Our menu price is $22.99.
Yeah, come at it if you like it, and you're selling a consistent product yeah, I get the whole idea of the restaurant business. It seemed a lot sexier when I was younger.
Oh yeah, no. Keep your money in the farm, bro. Keep your money in the farm.
I almost became a restaurateur a couple of times. I was just like, I thought it would be so much fun.
You were a great customer, by the way.
I was a good customer.
So you had the first half of your research done,
right?
Right? Yeah. Great customer, but not all great customers, turn into the great owners, right? Because they still remain customers.
That's right. They're still pulling up to the wood.
That's interesting, though. Yeah, like your price goes up, and you can't control your sale price all the time, except for pushing yield. And you're saying I had to go buy more land to get the yield that I need.
You're trying to buy land, you're trying to build something, and in these days when there's outside money coming into agriculture, and you don't know what's going to go happen, and you're just trying to solidify a little, area for the future of your family, to solidify that, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm buying land at these values where they're probably inflated values from outside money coming into our industry, and you need rented land or owned land to subsidize new purchased land. So you have to have a certain number of acres either owned or rented to subsidize your new purchase and your growth of your farm. And, I got a really good banker, and he kind of tells you what you need to be, where you need to be to make sure that the numbers make sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
That's some good guidance there. Smart.
Yeah, like the farms.
But you're trying to grow a farm, right? And land doesn't come up. Like in certain pockets of the world, these high valued, high productive areas of Saskatchewan, land isn't even on the market. It's traded in secret, essentially. And
letter in the mail.
and
If
it's
you're
like-
selling this, I want it. Call me.
yeah, like you either be out there actively searching, and so people have their ears to the ground on purchasing land, or somebody that's selling land and that deal's done like that. Rarely does it ever hit the market really on really high lands. And so typically there's like land prices aren't going down when you have a lineup of 5-6 people that are always be willing to buy that land. So you got growth in times where there shouldn't be growth. And even low commodity values are where they're at. You've got 16-17% growth in our land values when typically, commodity prices are down, farming's expensive, inputs and everything's so high, yet values are increasing. Like, well, when does that correct? And then you keep on getting people like my father and other people I know who are older, who went through the high interest rate days of the 80s. And then they're like, well, I could have farmed as much land as I wanted to back in the 80s if I just paid its taxes. You know what I mean? And so it took a lot of bad news because there was a lot of people who were making a lot of money through the 60s and 70s. But then the 80s came around with the high interest rates, and farming lost its appeal.
And I don't know how people did that. Like, I mean,
they didn't know
17, 18%. Like, I mean, it's crazy stuff.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's
right?
nuts.
Like,
it's nuts.
They don't even think 5% is high.
No.
When I'm like 5%
It's
crazy.
like, oh my God. We're getting raped here.
Well, we're all the same. We're all, I think, the same age. And I just renewed my mortgage, and for the first time saw a 4 in front of the interest rate. And my mom's laughing at me because she worked in the banking industry. She's like, Jim, I paid 18, 19%. And I'm like, in my life, like I was 1.8 to like 2.8 the whole lifespan of my mortgage for 20 years. That's our age group. Right? So when we see a 4, we're like, come on, you kidding me right now?
And if you knew how to use money like that back then, that free, cheap money, and that's a good way to grow a business. And when money's it's almost free at that point.
But you got to do something good with it, and you got to trust yourself. And I know a lot of people that tried to play that game,
and they just saw a bank account with a lot of zeros in it.
That's it.
Everything's that money's theirs.
The only if you're gonna borrow money at any rate, you better ensure that where exactly dollar for dollar that money's going is going to get you a higher return than you're borrowing at. It's not for toys.
No,
it's not for trips.
Some of it is.
Well, I mean, that's not a game I'm willing to play. I play a whole different game of like, the minute I'm unleveraged and the minute I don't owe anybody anything, nobody has control over me.
That's right.
Well, that's powerful.
But no financial advisor agrees with me. They're like, no, they're lending out at that rate. Go leverage and do this.
Right.
There's good debt and bad debt.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But everyone's personal with their risk adversity and,
Well, it's a whole mentality. You got people who grew up in the dirty 30s, and they have a whole different mentality of, hey, we are tight. We aren't spending any extra money. And some of that was passed down to our parents. And that mentality is like, okay, we are saving, we are going to do whatever it takes
All the time.
and be tight and frugal with their money. Now you have a generation where is if you can finance it, you can afford it.
And did that
everything's
us?
a payment.
Yeah,
we are that.
We are part of that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been blessed to not get into trouble with that stuff, but
Well, Pops tried to tell me, like, I'm gonna try. He told me, like, and I can't remember how old I was. I'm gonna say I was in my early 20s, so we're talking teens or 2010, somewhere around there, 2010. John, just make sure you pay cash for toys. Like, don't be financing any of that stuff. But I mean, sleds are like 20 grand now.
It's hilarious.
It's crazy. Like, I mean, when they were buying boats and stuff like that, a sled was like $3,500. You know, like a boat was 8-10 grand. You know, like it was just, it's unfathomable amount. Like, I mean, how much that stuff's gone up that to the point where like we cannot not finance that stuff.
Well, it blows my mind. And, you know, I come from an HR background, and wages is something that I've followed. It, you know, and it just blows my mind how wages have not kept up in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
What my mom and dad made when me and Bean were going to La Boldis High School back in 1998, like
big men on campus,
their cost of living. Oh yeah, he was the guy.
Yeah.
Right.
But like their cost of living was very reasonable.
Yeah.
And when I'm comparing what I make per year and what my wife makes per year with what my mom and dad made per year in very, you know, like similar job categories.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It's crazy.
The difference.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
a disparity between, this happens in other countries where there's a bigger disparity between rich and poor, and we're creating that gap, and it's happening more. And, you know, the middle class becomes less middle class and either become rich or poor, you know, and the cost of living is atrocious, you know, but
well, my issue is we do it to ourselves, right? So
totally.
the people that are complaining like cost of living is too high, a lot of the people I see are the ones that are driving the demand up because of overconsumption. If we just change our mentality to say, hey, maybe we don't need everything.
Yeah.
That's why inflation hasn't gone down because people keep on buying.
It's wild.
Yeah,
it's
they try and tell
insane.
themselves that we don't need it, but I mean, then as soon as they try and slow it down a little bit, it's like they're missing it and missing out. Like it's crazy.
But eventually, though, the bank comes knocking.
Oh yeah,
I've seen that. I've had people get the knock and go, "You have over leveraged yourself over a decade."
Yeah,
and they've always found a way to maneuver a way out.
Yeah.
But now they don't have it.
No.
And a bank is going to get their money.
Yeah.
You know, one way or the other. So we have to just calm down and be more financially literate, get off this competition thing and make smart financial decisions. I'm not an expert and I'm not the best, but I've just seen people, you know, do things with money that I'm just like, why? That is completely and utterly unnecessary.
Yeah.
Unless your answer is to me, well, they do it, so I have to do it. You know, they took their kids to Disney World, so I have to do it. Well, I don't have to, and I can't afford it, so it ain't happening.
Yeah.
Sorry, kids. You're going to have to go on Netflix and look at Mickey Mouse that way. Sorry, bro. That's my budget.
It's how it happens. It'll happen. You know, people talk about that through time. It's just like the rich will have it easier on their kids, and then the kids won't have the type of work ethic that's required to keep that kind of thing happening. It's not even rich. It's just like a level of wealth.
And then their kids become strong from their weakness.
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah, it's the cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle like that, right?
Yep.
Yo, wow.
Yo. Fuck, this is a great conversation, man.
Great one.
So good. Have you got something for us, Jay, before we wrap up?
I mean, I got a couple just random questions, rapid fire that you can just answer quick.
Sure.
Just because he's my boy and I gotta
these are one worders, right? Like, is it a yes, no, or a single answer?
Yeah, it's pretty much one word.
How to do those? I don't know.
I'm staying away from this one, Bean.
Yeah, I mean these are, you don't have to go too deep. So, favorite band of all time or musician?
Oh, musician. I'm in the heavy and electronic music, but if I like the Arctic Monkeys in terms of on a band level.
They're very well respected in the music world for sure. Beer, wine, or liquor?
I don't drink
At all?
period.
Really? Good for you, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I called her a day about 4.5 years ago.
Nice.
Good for you, man.
Just wasn't doing it for
Wasn't
me
serving you anymore.
No, I'd met my quota a few times over.
Good for you, man.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
awesome.
Two political party system or multi political party system like Canada? US system or Canada system in terms of just number of parties?
Well, it's kind of whittling itself down. We'll probably end at a 2-party system. I don't know.
Well, even now though, like, I mean, does it? I mean, we have 2 parties. Like, I mean, and do the third and fourth even matter in government? Like, I
Well,
mean,
they do because they
yes, I understand.
If
Like,
you
I mean,
remove the option to vote for them,
yes, that's
then
right.
it is causing almost a division. You have to pick a side.
Right.
Whereas if you can do
if you have 2, you've never seen someone more
divisive,
than down in the
Yeah.
south.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
You're right.
Yeah,
You
But
know, and you're like
becomes an
50-50,
extremist
It's
thing.
like, whoa, you know, like
We have a multi-system up here, and I'm still seeing a lot of division still, though.
there is, you know, because
So I don't know if that is the reason,
Well,
but-
you know, I've never thought I'd even say the words, but I was like, man, like, do I even need the East? It's like, well, at some point, it's like they don't look after our needs, and we don't have the same type of mentality over here. And the vote's decided before it gets here.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is a true
And
statement.
so I love Canada, and I want
Yeah.
it to keep a whole, but I don't like how the vote is spread.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Population based. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why farmers have a lot of land out here, because we don't have a lot of population.
Yeah.
So you're right. It is decided before us. So we kind of sit there and go like, you know,
I don't know. There's
let's
not
just pray.
I don't know what the you know, all level governments are corrupt, and on all levels. It's tough. I don't know what the right scenario is. You know,
Or what
I
the
haven't
best
voted.
answer is, yeah.
I haven't voted for a while.
Really?
You know,
Yeah, and I was a big heavy proponent of voting for a long time, and now I'm like,
voter burnout.
I just don't. I don't
Voter
know.
fatigue.
It doesn't matter who's in there.
Yeah.
They're all bad. It's a lesser of an evil.
Yeah. Okay. I can live in that world. Okay. Last one. Blondes, brunettes, or redheads?
I like a redhead.
Me too.
What? That's awesome.
Me too.
Good one to wrap up with. Nathan, thank you so much for coming, man.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
This is awesome. Will you come back?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come
Okay,
back. Yeah.
Right on. We got to check up on the season next year, and how the early seed went again.
Yeah, let's do that. That was fun. I don't know if we covered everything you wanted.
It was perfect.
Things. Yeah.
It was perfect. So next time we're doing it.
Cool. Thanks,
Okay,
man.
okay, man.